up, everybody? My name's Indy, and Jay did not forget.
I didn't forget.
He didn't forget. I was all like, she's going to forget. But anyways, sorry about that little sidetrack. My name's Indy, and that gentleman next to me is Jay Powell from Powell Group Consulting. And welcome to another amazing indie game business. And we've got Jennifer Javornik, and the subject was from Filament Games. Subject is serious games, real impact. These are not your ordinary Steam games right here we're talking about. Even though there is a game on Steam, because I was just checking it out. But yes, so welcome, Jennifer.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's so fun to be here.
All right, Jennifer, you have to remember to unmute in Discord. That's what Dan was celebrating that I didn't forget to do. So keep Dan and I muted, but make sure you unmute yourself. And while
she
you're
didn't
doing
know,
that,
nobody told her.
I want to give once again a shout out to Shell Wong, who did our theme song years ago, and she did a wonderful job, and I still love that theme song. So every now and then,
got me going.
I know, I like it. I love our theme song. So we're going to talk about serious games today, but we're also going to talk about conferences and things that big ones versus little ones, because we were just talking about all that y'all are doing up in the Midwest. So before anything else, let's start where we always start. Tell us how you got into games in general and walk us through your career up to this point.
Oh, okay. That's such a great question. When I was little, I wanted to grow up and be a Broadway star. And that translated into doing all the plays and choirs and performance stuff.
Theater kids.
Total theater kid.
Yes.
Then which translated into going to college and not knowing what to major in, and then realizing I had enough classes in theater to be a theater major.
Ooh.
But grounded enough to not think that going into theater for me was like a good idea. So I ended up working in IT consulting. In 18 years. It was government consulting. It was really serious. It was very conservative industry. I got the job pre-Y2K when the world was about to end, and they were recruiting anyone with a beating heart to try to help the effort. And I stayed there for 18 years. But then always on the side, I always did theater. I was a professional improv comedian for 15 years. And I kind of needed like that to balance out my very serious and difficult job in IT consulting. So then it was, for various reasons, it was time for me to leave that industry. And I hadn't really considered the video game industry, although, I grew up playing video games, and, my dad was a teacher, and he was the first to be the head of their video game club because they bought an Atari, and he would sneak it home on the weekends so his kids could play it. So I was kind of trying to find my next big thing, and I realized that video games was the perfect mashup of like theater, creativity, storytelling, combined with, technology and everything that I'd learned in that field. So that's how I ended up here.
All right, so we get to play another one of my favorite games, and rating who has the most least effective college degree, your theater degree or my English degree. I mean, it's amazing how many of us end up in this industry. And folks are like, I was a theater major.
Will you take us with these degrees?
Yes, that's basically it.
Yeah.
I got an internship. That's what happened to me. But yes.
Here we are. We made it. I would not recommend that to anyone in 2026, that path to the video game industry.
But realistically though, this is what I tell, my kid and other kids, much to their parents' detriment sometime. Unless you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, does your major really matter? I mean, maybe it does in other industries. In this one, it doesn't really seem to. But if I had to go back and do it again, I would honestly be a history major. It's like I had enough things to be a history minor. I just never went and filled out the paperwork. But anyway.
Paperwork, Jay. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to know. I have two kids. One's a sophomore in college and one's about to start college in the fall. I don't even know what to suggest as a major, because in my view, it seems like AI is taking over everything.
As long as you enjoy it, that's my thing. It's like,
Yeah.
don't go and get a major in something that you absolutely hate.
And you're going to enjoy it if it uses your special skills. Like if you're uniquely designed for that thing, you're going to love it.
Tom chiming in, he's got us both beat. So that just means you didn't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars in loans. That's you're okay. You're okay, Tom. All right. So serious games.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about Filament. You've been there for 10 years. What do you all create? And we'll just start off with, why is it important? Why should we care?
Yeah, sure. So Filament, we've been around for 20 years and we focus, our mission is to create playful experiences that improve people's lives. So probably if you think of us, you know, a lot of what we do is we create educational games that are kind of tied to learning objectives and outcomes. And we make them, you know, essentially games for kids to play during class time as part of school, or sometimes we make educational games which are meant for enrichment and you'd play them after school. But it's more than just that. I mean, I think Filament's special sauce is that we do everything that a entertainment video game studio would do. We just have the extra desire or need or capability to make games that transform the player. So in a lot of cases, what we're trying to do with the player is like have them play the game and afterwards they know something they didn't know before. But it can be a lot of things. It could be like, well, the goal of this game is to shift your mindset about something, or to introduce you and have you practice a new behavior. It could be, we want this game to activate people to go do something in the real world. So it's like just a different and maybe a higher bar. I mean, higher, I don't want to cause a fight here, but an additional bar, let's say it that way, than entertainment games. So, I mean, I think it's important. I think, hey, we know that everyone from learning science, we know that everyone learns differently. Talk about AI, the state of education is now going to drastically change. If you think about when we went to school, you know, like we had to go to school to access the library and use the card system to take out the book to read something. Or we had to go to school to listen to a teacher who knew more than we do. So like the point of school was like, we literally had to go to a physical location to go get knowledge. And, you know, the internet changed all that. And now all the information was on Google. And now an AI is just going to synthesize it for you and make it easier to digest and allow you to, instead of just reading one source, you can read millions in the synthesized version. So I think when you think about what AI is going to do is, I mean, just how the internet affected learning, it became, we're no longer concerned about you acquiring information. Yes, there's stuff with the internet that you need to understand, like media literacy, how to identify if a source is credible or not. How can you decide if the information is valid? But kind of like the acquisition of information is like done. Like we know how to do that. So then then what is school? What is learning? What kind of skills do you need? Well, we'd argue you need skills that you learn that's more the application of the knowledge, right? You can get all the knowledge you want, but do you know how to apply it? Can you use that knowledge to like solve problems? Can you use that knowledge to like discover new things? And that's where video games are so good, because we can create games that put you into situations that, you know, you wouldn't be in your everyday life, and then give you the tools, show you how to use the tools, and then kind of see how you handle them. Like in video games, you know, it's perfect for learning because we're all used to dying in games. Like there's no big deal if you do something wrong. In fact, a lot of times doing something wrong in a video game is how you learn more. So it's very forgiving in that sense. We also can use things like scaffolding and reward systems to kind of encourage the educational process. So, you know, the research has been going about educational games for years. Like it's really clear that if you tee up educational games, teaching the same subject matter area through like a video or text, video games will always win, because video games, those other modalities are passive. You're sitting back and you're kind of taking in a video or taking in knowledge by reading or a podcast, speaking of which, whereas video games are, the learning doesn't happen unless you're actively involved. So you actually, the game just doesn't move if you don't move. So you have to be actively engaged to move it forward.
It used to be, I mean, and this goes back to when I first got in the industry in the late 90s. Education games, the minute you said that, everybody was like, oh my God, no, we're not dealing with this. We're not doing it. But how has that changed, especially like in the last, I mean, COVID was a huge one, obviously, because all of a sudden everybody had to learn how to do remote learning. And that was, at least for us in Western North Carolina, a shit show for like a year, just because we had teachers that didn't know how to use Google. And that's a bit of a problem. How has that mentality changed now that the world is seeing, okay, look, these kids are going to be in Roblox or Minecraft or Fortnite or whatever anyway? How can we adapt that? How has that, between COVID and just the evolution of the industry and this next generation, how has that mentality changed over the last 5, 10, 15 years?
Definitely. I've been in this industry for 10 years and I've seen a huge difference between 10 years ago. You talk to school systems or you talk to district administrators and they were like, I don't know, we're really serious about learning. I don't know if games are a good fit. Whereas today it's almost like if you have a digital educational product, especially to elementary school kids, if it doesn't have games, it's like people are like, well, what, like it almost is just not even a thing. Like they're just ubiquitous now in elementary school, very pervasive in middle school and more in high school. I think the other thing that the education system has done, and again, I see it a huge difference between the education I got and the education my kids got, is there is much more of a focus on differentiated learning. There's just much more of an appetite to meet learners where they are and to be cognizant of how people learn and kind of acknowledging the differences. So part of that mix is some kids just learn a lot better in video games. So that means, I'm not saying transform your whole curriculum into video games, but having it available with other modalities, it makes a lot of sense, just because you're going to catch kids who are having trouble learning in different ways. And that's another cool thing in the research is you see over and over across all these games, educational games that have been studied. It's like all kids make games. You can kind of track what they learned in an educational game if they play it. But the biggest jump in like learning acquisition is those kids that are kind of in the disengaged learner or kind of in the bottom quadrant of their class. It's actually those kids who kind of identify as someone who's not good at school tend to do really well with video games. And kind of what we see in the classroom is that teachers will say like, wow, this is, this kid who, identifies as someone who doesn't like school, hates school, doesn't go to school. Suddenly we put in a video game and he's a leader. He's showing people how to make it work. If other kids are getting stuck, he's going over and helping them. And now it's an opportunity for him to like have a really different learning experience. It's really positive.
And it's something that they're comfortable with because they're playing, games anyway. How has the mentality for the teachers, because I know that's always been, an issue as well. It's like, we don't want to incorporate this because you still have a lot of folks that think video games are bad. On the other hand, my son has a math teacher that regularly runs them through D&D one-shots because it's like, hey, how you don't learn how math? Let's do it this way. So, I mean, how is that mentality with the teachers or the administrators? Because I know that's always the extra challenge with doing a serious game. It's like on one level, you have to make it fun because you are competing with that kid's mental space. Do I want to do this or do I want to play like a quote unquote real game? But then you've got to get that through the administration and the purchasing's different. How has the mentality with the teachers and the administration changed in the last 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely seen a lot of changes. I think the one thing, especially not as much with elementary school, but when you're starting to look at games in middle school and high school, studios like ours are building games to meet these kids where they are. if you like video games, by the time you're in middle school, you're a really good gamer. In high school, even better. Like you're playing, some of the world's biggest games. So to go to school and have an experience, it wouldn't make sense if we had something that didn't looked more like a spreadsheet or looked more like a worksheet than a video game. So I think the thing that I think educators and administrators are realizing is like, the fear that comes up is if I have to teach with this, like I'm not a gamer. I don't play video games. I've never played one. So how am I going to teach it? What happens if a kid in class is stuck? Like I'm overwhelmed. Like, and I might be fighting with my kids at home about getting off video games. So why would I want to bring this into the classroom? And I think for them, it's like, we just keep reiterating, like, you don't need to know how to play the game. You need to know what's in the game. And we'll give you PDFs that tell you like, what are the learning objectives we cover, and kind of will make it easy for teachers with curriculum to kind of talk about how to incorporate this game in the classroom. But those teachers don't need to know how to use the game, because what happens is exactly like we were just talking. You can rely on the fact there are at least a large portion of the kids in your class that are playing video games. And if a kid doesn't play many video games at home and gets stuck, it's a perfect opportunity to pair them with someone who's further advanced and give it an opportunity for someone to like help their classmate to work through it. So we always think like, the other thing the research says is like a well-designed video game is awesome in itself. But an educational video game supported by a teacher that kind of thoughtfully integrates it into their lesson plan, does some teaching before about what the concepts are, maybe does some group activities outside of the video game to further like probe the content. And then afterwards, after the game, kind of holds a discussion or kind of a debrief. You can see the scores go up even more in terms of the knowledge acquisition. So we always say video games are not here to replace teachers. The research just shows us they're here to empower teachers and kind of make an even better learning experience.
So one of the questions that I get frequently, and I see a lot of game jams and competitions, and somebody comes out of it and they've made a music game or they've made some sort of educational game for schools, and they're like, well, now what do I do with it? And that's the part of the industry that I'm not familiar with. If someone has created a game that they feel is going to be a good educational tool as well, what do they do with it? There's not like a Steam for teachers,
Yeah.
How do you get it out there so people know it even exists?
There have been several attempts in this industry over the years, I can tell you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For years, if you're familiar with Brain Pop, they had a platform called Game Up that they kind of just gathered all of these, indie educational games. Most of them, the games were made because someone had won a federal grant through the Department of Education or National Science Foundation. So they were all educationally sound, well-researched, but there was no home for them. So they created a home, and it was part of Brain Pop. And unfortunately, as they iterated on their product and grew, like it just didn't make sense for them to support it. There's a new initiative right now I'd love to give a shout out to. It's actually right down the street from us at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. It's a product called The Vault. And if you search, there's a lab within UW-Madison called Field Day Lab. And they've put together essentially just a database of games that are educational games that kind of are aligned to learning objectives, most oftentimes that are well-researched, that are web-based. Their team actually, when you submit a game, actually plays the game and kind of checks it, and then ends up putting it up in the vault. The vault's a free resources. If you're a parent or a teacher out here and you want to go find it to find some awesome, well-made, well-researched educational games, go find the vault.
So random takeaway. I'm down here in North Carolina. I actually have one of University of Wisconsin-Madison's old card catalog in my office. We bought one at an antique place because I always wanted one. Again, English major nerd. And there's a stamp. When I pulled one of the doors out, it's from the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Oh my God. And it was all for this moment right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's all coming full circle right now.
Wow.
So, I mean, do do the administrators know that this resource exists? Is it something, because in my mind, it always comes back to, okay, is Scholastic supporting it? Because if not, no one's going to know about it because they do the book
Right.
fairs and everything else in the world. How is it getting out there to the general schools?
Well, it just came out in the last 12 months. So they're, of course, doing their own publicity about it. I think in terms of if you're like, well, does Scholastic do it? Well, no, Scholastic has their own products that incorporate their own games, some of which Filament has made, that they then sell to school districts. So that was going to be coming back to your original questions, like, hey, I made a great educational games. How do I get it in front of teachers? Yeah, you're either like going and putting them on something like the Vault so that people can find them. The other option is if you have a game that's relevant and you can find an existing educational publisher that has like a digital curriculum around the game that you're proposing and you want to do a licensing deal, or they end up wanting to carry your game as a part of their product. That's another way, kind of, I just made a game and how do I get people to use it, how it ends up. The third option is, if it's polished enough and you can get it through, you can go ahead and put it on games. Surprisingly, there are a bunch of nerds on Steam, or maybe not even surprisingly.
That's not surprising.
We've been making educational games for a long time, but our model is mostly we get hired by other people to make games that they then take to market. But over the years, we've benefited from grants from different federal departments where we've made games and they get studied for research and for the research to go back into the community. But then we end up with these games with this question of like, wow, this is a well-researched game that was iterated on for a long time, that we co-designed with teachers. Where does it go? Well, we had a big effort like in 2012, 13, 14, where we ended up putting them on Steam. And surprisingly, we had a game about like understirring like plant biology game. We had a second game about Punnett squares. And like
about what?
Punnett squares. It's like basically it comes up with like it's called Crazy Plant Shop, where you're like breeding different plants.
Oh, the little squares we did with the. Okay, I forgot that actually had a name.
And we put those two games out there, and surprisingly, very hot in Germany. So it was very interesting to see where around the world people wanted to play more serious games. We then recently, in the past 12 or maybe a little bit longer than that, we put out, we ended up building a really cool game around robotics. It's called RoboCo. It's still in early access, but version 1 is coming out this year. And basically, we argued to the National Science Foundation that if you want to get more equity into robotics, you need to solve these problems. Like the first problem with robotics is the kits are expensive. Secondly, you need a mentor or a coach who knows robotics to actually teach robotics. And, if you're going to be involved in competitions, you need to be in an area that has money or can raise money to actually fund all of this travel that goes with robotics competition. So we was like, hey, here's an idea. Why don't we recreate a digital robotics kits in digital, and then we'll give you multiple ways to learn. We'll give you like an open sandbox to just make robots to your heart's desire. We have some amazing, they must be engineers in their real life. We had someone who created a fully functional 3D printer in our game using our parts, like just incredible. Well, where literally, if you're out there and you're listening to this, like we were all stunned. We actually took your robot and took it apart to see how you did this. It was amazing. It was amazing. So there's an open sandbox, and then there's like this robot repair area where we've created a bunch of broken robots, and you go through them and figure out how to fix them. And each of the robots is broken in a certain way that it kind of teaches you one learning objective in robotics. And then the third way to learn is like a campaign of challenges. So it starts off with build a robot to deliver a package, and it, goes all the way up to like protect the town from a zombie apocalypse.
Oh, well, everything's better with zombies.
I mean, clearly.
That's a given.
Yeah. We also have and then so we built it, right? And we built it for the study for this grant. And then part of it is we put it out on Steam. And it is funny how people just find you, right? Like it was so cool to see which countries really got into Roboco. And then it was super cool just to see that, it uses Steam Workshop so you can share your robots and to see the robots. I mean, fully functional cars. They were like, add a coding interface. And then we included the ability to add to code Python code to like fully automate your robot. So then people got really fancy with that. Wow. It was so cool.
And the game, I put it up on Steam and I posted it in chat as well. It has a very positive rating, which in and of itself is fantastic for a game, because that's not easy to do.
No, I will say though, like, I think we've been iterating on it, and I'm hoping that people love when it comes out as version 1. And one of the things we had to iterate on is just smoothing out the on-ramp. At the beginning, we were getting non-standard return rates. And I think it's just because, we were like, it's a game of engineering. It has to teach real engineering. It's and then we realized like, oh, this is too hard. Like people smooth in the on-ramp. Yeah. And that was a good lesson for us.
But it is. And unfortunately, it's a lesson that a lot of, serious game companies don't take to heart, because they do that. They have that, okay, listen, we're educators, we're engineers, and they build an interface made for educators and engineers. And then people go into play it that aren't, and they're like, what the hell?
Yeah, but even if it was like, we're talking it's made for middle school, high school. Like we should have, I think part of the issue is like, we got so deep into robotics and you kind of lose sight about where someone actually starts. It's almost like our knowledge of robotics got so advanced as we built this game that we kind of forgot like where people start, which is, I don't know. If I've never built a robot, like, the closest thing I've come to is taking Lego bricks and making it look like a robot. And actually, that's what a lot of first-time players were doing. They were like, okay, I see these pieces, I'll like stack them up to make it look like a cute robot. But like, ooh, how do I make it move? Like the whole like automating the robot, there wasn't enough as a soft on-ramp. So I think we fixed a lot of those issues. If people played it, please let us know, what you think about it. But yeah, but then the cool thing was Meta ended up giving us a grant because they were like, we need to see this game in VR. Because there's something so physical about making robots. You literally use your body to build robots, and they were looking to diversify their catalog. So we ended up making a version for the Meta store called Some Assembly Required that really just changes. It's the core building functionality is the same, but we just changed the whole perspective to make it feel like a VR first experience. So that was super fun too.
And you've got the little wonky humans walking around that you have to help. And that's like, that makes every game better.
Well, the fun thing too is, if you collide with them, fun things happen.
This is awesome. Now, aside from, games for schools, games aids at middle and high school, but you also do, medical stuff, other types of serious games. And I remember it was not too long after, it was still a long time ago, like 25 years ago, one of the first research papers came out that said surgeons who grew up playing video games are better at surgery. And my buddy, who's a surgeon, down at the coast, we were just all dying laughing because that's all we did in college was play video games and Mario Kart and everything else. And so what about that side of the industry? I mean, what have you seen growth wise and changing wise there, especially since everything in those industries is going so tech based?
Yeah, I mean, it makes so much sense. Like training a surgeon, training a soldier, training a submarine operator, training a airplane pilot. It's like just the training is expensive to like reserve the equipment, or especially if you're going to be using products that cost money. Like it's going to just be expensive and difficult. We did a couple of years ago, we did some work with the U.S. Office of Naval Research where they identify a need to train sonar operators, so like under submarine sonar operators. And the issue is that they would get trained kind of in a classroom with kind of they'd see images of what the equipment looked like, and they kind of understood the science behind what they were doing. But then essentially the next step, it would go from classroom and then it would go in the submarine, because then they'd have to log so many hours in the submarine actually using the equipment as it's made. So we ended up working on a project that created this intermediate. So after you've done the classroom training, before you spend all this money kind of doing these submarine dives to train these people, let's create like a digital interface and a simulation so that they can kind of see and operate a digital simulation of the equipment, and kind of practice on it before they go ahead and do the expensive task, which is still very needed. You wouldn't want to hand over the keys to your submarine after someone played this, but at least they went into the live training experience more prepared.
I played Call of Duty. I can drive the submarine. I'm good to go. I'm fine.
I believe you, Jay. I believe you. You. Don't worry.
We used to see, I don't see this as much anymore, but I'm not as close to that side of the industry as I used to be either.
Yep.
Are there opportunities that you've seen to take what you've designed for medical and military, declassify it, get all the secret stuff out, and then release it as commercial products? Because Sims are still ridiculously popular, games to play.
Yeah. I mean, it just depends on when you're, a lot of times when you're doing work for the government military, they end up owning the IP. So it just really depends on how you negotiate your contract. And by I say negotiate, it just means accept what they tell you.
Exactly. It's the same way you deal with Sony. It's all right. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what would you like to tell me about this contractual arrangement? Because we'll just go with whatever you say.
Because we're not going to change anything. We just wanted your opinion. So circling back a little bit to the underlying technology, you mentioned that a lot of the stuff, like with BrainPop, was web-based. The kids today in school, they get, my son's got a Chromebook that he, home. It seems like that's become the ubiquitous technology that gets handed out at school.
Yeah.
Are you looking to do more, what I'll just call, PC games that are based on Steam? Are you looking into, doing web games? Is it HTML5? Is that catching on? What is, the easiest path to victory when you're dealing with all of these different organizations who, quite frankly, don't have an Xbox? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you are someone who's interested in making games for school, just at this point, like, it just has to be web-based. So when we made Roboco, we had to make it as a download install at the time, just because the web technology hadn't caught up. And it's just a really big game, right? So it's not that schools don't have computer labs with real computers, but they usually have one and the teacher needs to make time to do it. Then you're limited to, like, if you want to assign work for the kid to do after school, you're limited by the computer lab. You'll see more in like CTE that they do use some product like industry software. Maybe if you're learning CAD or something else, that it's important for you to have like the professional version because you're pursuing a certificate. And so I'm not saying that schools never purchase products that are download install, but if you want to make sure that you're going to meet schools where they are, definitely, and in the US market, it needs to be web-based. And at this point, our default is using WebGL with Unity. It operates really well at this point and has a lot of muscle to it, so it's well performing. It's good. Sometimes we build products for customers that do have a requirement for whatever reason that we build specifically in HTML5, and we'll do that for them. We actually created a Unity Pixie.js engine we use kind of Unity to generate it, and then it kind of deploys it at HTML5. So that's really nice for our studio to use. But from a technology, yes. The other thing we found out that if you're like, well, that's okay, I support apps and I support Chromebook apps, so isn't that good? Well, you would think it would be good, but from an administrative perspective, the feedback we got is sometimes it does kind of intercept and make it a no-go on purchasing because if it's a Chromebook app, it requires a different level of IT approval and people just don't want to deal with it. Or don't have time, or there's just too much like administration with managing an app. Whereas if it's a browser, people can go to it. And then of course, if you're doing things for kids, it needs to be, FERPA and COPPA compliant. And then now even more, there's been like new accessibility guidelines in the works that, we're anticipating in the next like years, but close years, like 1 or 2 years, will, everything will have to be fully accessible. So that's another thing you want to think about.
So switching gears just a little bit, because it's
Sure.
like you're saying this and it's like all I can do is see, my son's class, and especially when we found out in high school they can just like have phones in the classroom, and I'm like, how does that even work? But publishing a game, an indie game on Steam by itself is already hard enough.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges that you found when you all posted, released
early
into early access, in terms of like discoverability? How did you get the word out? Because I mean, I don't know how many you sold, but you've got 139 very positive reviews on Steam, which is nothing to, be ashamed of at all. That's a solid, lead you've got going in there. How did you approach it? What were the challenges that you saw? How did you, sneak this like educational game into Steam, where it's like that's not the marketplace for it usually?
I know. Well, first of all, we don't call it an educational game.
Well, see, that's the key.
It's just fun, Jay. It's just fun. Yeah, we really had to think about how to launch it, because Filament has been around for a long time, and we had some games on Steam, but they were kind of like, we just put them up and we were like, let's see what happens. But Roboco, we felt like there's 50 hours of gameplay in there. It's like a really rich game. And for the right player, it's like such a satisfying, cool game. We went ahead, part of one of the grants that we had received from the NSF had the opportunity to apply for an additional grant for commercialization. And by the way, this podcast is being recorded in 2025. I don't know what the state of the grants is going to be, but
disclaimer.
At the time, we were able to we got this grant, and then we had an opportunity to apply for a commercialization grant, which was meant to, the grant, you had to use it to kind of commercialize the product that you had developed for the NSF. So we went ahead and we won the grant, the little grant, and we took that to go and hire a PR firm. We had talked to a couple of indie game publishers, and we got offers from 2 different indie game publishers, but there was just a disconnect because we had literally raised millions of dollars for this game. And, we felt like we don't know what we don't know. We're safer off with the publisher. But when it really got down to the term sheet, they gave us like baby studio offer, I call it. Like they were like, yeah, we know you've like raised millions, maybe that, yeah, it was over $1 million for this game, but we would like to offer you $250,000, and we will then take half of the revenue, and we will pay ourselves back before we pay you. And it just became like, this doesn't feel right here. Like this feels like, hey, you've got to acknowledge like that we've put in disproportionately so much more time and effort and money into this game. So we decided to not take the publishing offers. We decided to self-publish, but we used that commercialization money, and getting back to that story, to hire a PR firm. And we did a lot of research at the different PR firms and kind of interviewed them all and kind of figured out, what they could offer. Because when we looked at the publishing deal, like really the marketing piece was the only place where we felt like we paid for localization. Like that wasn't important to us. We didn't really need their development dollars, so that wasn't important to us. We really need someone who knew how to market games. And I don't know what to tell you, Jay. It was interesting. We hired this PR firm specifically for, what do you call that when it's like for PR? So
yeah,
like
just pre-launch marketing.
Yeah, but what's it called when like a newspaper just naturally uses your name? Earned.
Oh yeah. God, earned. That's not earned revenue. It's earned. My whole marketing
Yeah,
buddies are laughing their asses off at me right now.
I know, me too.
But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So we hired them to do that, and we were successful with streamers. Once we found the streamers that really had good audiences and had really were streaming about simulations, Roboco was like a gift to them. They were like, you don't even have to pay us. Like, we're just excited to make content about this game. Like, it's so we had to find we there was one streamer in Russia that his like videos just like blew up. So we got really popular in Russia for a while. And then we had a couple of US streamers that really liked it. So we ended up being able to forge those relationship with streamers. And it was finding like the right streamer who cared about our game. And so that was good. But the PR firm, honestly, they tried for months and they never got us one mention.
Yeah, Jennifer can see me backstage. The rest of you can't. And I'm sitting over here doubled over laughing as she's telling me these stories because, yes, you went through what every single indie dev goes through.
Yeah.
Like, we've invested all this money and then you get like a lowball offer from, possibly not even a good publisher who's just going to put it out there and see if it earns back in the first 60 days. So you did the right thing. I mean, it's one of those, if you can't find the right partner, then just do it yourself.
Yeah.
And you've done that. And that's
PR stuff was disappointing. And it's not that they didn't try. They had a whole, like, they always revealed to us who they were pitching and for stories and for coverage. It's just tough. It's like, does the industry want to talk about the latest AAA release or want to talk about this very fun robotics game from a studio you've never heard of who's self-publishing? It's just they couldn't get the attention to kind of make it into kind of the gaming news that you'd expect it to go. And they even tried like robotics publications. They tried like all sorts of different kind of publications, and it just was unsuccessful. So
I've learned you have to throw some controversy in there. It's like, this game will teach AI how to take all of your jobs, and then you're going to be you're fine. You're going to be in every single magazine worldwide. But if it's not controversial and they can't get a click from it, it's hard to get it.
Yeah.
We just
never got it. So, the PR firm did advise us, and like basically they were like, you need this many pre-orders, or it's not called pre-orders in Steam.
Early access sales. But yeah.
Thank you. You need
wish list. You're talking about wish list.
Yeah. My goodness. You need
Friday.
This many wish lists before you launch, and we hustled and like really our marketing team did such a great job and grew our wish list to like 3 times the recommended amount of wish lists than the PR studio recommended. Thanks. Someone just said earned media coverage. Thank you. I think we ended up, at the time they were recommending 10,000. I think we got to 30.
That's solid.
Yeah, we felt good about it. So yeah, that's kind of what we ended up doing. I think we're now in the dance is like, we want to make V1 really great, and we've kind of taken our time to get there. And it's kind of like, at this point, like, I think a lot of our original players are kind of now just waiting for the update. But because we still have a really big wish list that hasn't converted, we're wondering, like, are they just all waiting for V1? Are we definitely in the world that people don't even bother with early access? So we will see. You can have me back and I'll tell you all about it.
They're waiting for the 1.0 launch because that's when you're going to get the next big push from Steam, and they're also waiting for it to go on sale because that's where all your units move.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's talk about let's shift it a little bit. One, I want to know what it is about the Midwest this is where all of our cool educational stuff come from, because our generation remembers Oregon Trail, the greatest game ever made, and that came from MEC, which I believe was Minnesota, or was that in Michigan? But it was.
I don't know. I don't even know that.
Yes, it was MEC. All right, so I may be older than you.
I don't think so. I know Oregon Trail. I played it when it came out.
All the games that we played in school, all the education. I remember Oregon Trail. I remember those Lemonade games. They were all done by a company called MEC. It was MECC, and it was the Minnesota education
Oh, that could be.
something.
That's
But
cool.
Midwest in general,
Midwest
we're
is hopping.
seeing a whole lot of new stuff come out there. And we were talking right before we went live about MDev coming up, GDev's going on in Ohio. So let's twist it a little bit. But I mean, if there's more you want to cover on the games, we can absolutely do that too.
No, let's talk about this.
Explain to everyone why it is a much better use of your money to go to some of these smaller regional events like MDev than it is to spend your money to go out to Las Vegas for DICE, but GDC in San Francisco, where it's so expensive. Because I tell people all the time, and they're sick of hearing it from me, so I want them to hear it from somebody else.
So Jay gave me this script. Let me just read it for you all. No, I mean, I've been to GDC. I've been to E3. My experience there is that they have just become so incredibly large that you actually end up being around a lot of people, but like no one is talking to each other, because I think it's just because of the number of people. There's just it's massive. It's over multiple buildings. You just are crossing people in the street all the time. And it's really hard to find like opportunities to meaningfully connect with people. And in the end, this industry, every industry is about people. It just is. Business is not between companies. It's between people that work for companies. So if you want to be able to connect with people and make meaningful connections. So I can speak to MDev. So that's put on by the Wisconsin Games Alliance, which I'm a board member. And we started it partially in response to what we were experiencing at GDC, but then secondly, to bring attention to the video game industry in the Midwest. Like, you think like, oh, I can't even think of what studios might be in Wisconsin. I just say, have you heard of Call of Duty? Because that's made by Raven Software here in Middleton, Wisconsin. A lot of the big brands have established offices here. So we now have, Apex Legends is partially made here. Epic has an office here. Great co-development partners like Lost Boys Interactives is here. There's a lot going on in Wisconsin and in the whole Midwest in terms of video games. So we started the conference a few years ago. I think our first time we had 300 people, and we thought, wow, that's amazing. I think last year we definitely, I don't have the exact number, but we were well over 1,000. I think it was like 1,500. I think this year we'll see. Look for the announcement, but we've always been a one-day studio and conference, and we've been interested in. We're thinking about expanding it to 2. And I think lastly, for the sponsors, it just makes so much sense because they can get some really great visibility in their booths, and people actually stop to talk. So it's really grown. I think it's worth your time if you're someone who wants to have like a meaningful experience at a conference. If you're in the Midwest, it's a no-brainer. Whether you're looking for employment, you're looking for people to like give you feedback on your game, whether you're on the business side of video games, like wherever you are, we have world-class talent right here in the Midwest. And you could not only hear them speak on a stage, you could shake their hand and ask your personal questions afterwards, which is so different, than the glitz of glam of GDC. So I definitely think if you're thinking, and our conference is like, I don't know what the price is going to be this year, but it's like just completely affordable. Traveling to Madison, Wisconsin is so pleasant. We have such a lovely international, but very manageable airport. The city is like 10 minutes from the airport. Like, lodging is less expensive. It's in November. It's November 7th. So most of the time there's no snow yet. It's just really fun. It's a great conference. And I think people in the Midwest are so nice. So if you're like, I don't know, if I'm traveling from like the coast and I come, will anyone talk to me? Oh my God, we will sit down and serve you a beer and like want to learn about your family and where you're from. Like, yeah, it's a great conference.
And Tom sitting here nailing it behind stage. MEC was the Minnesota Educational Computing Consortium. It was shut down by SoftKey in the late 90s. So, F you, SoftKey. We love that company. Anyway, this is something that now is it mainly B2B or is it B2C or is it both?
So it's a conference for video game developers first and foremost. So when you look at the agenda, who's speaking, we have talks about mostly about game design, game engineering, like visual art, UX. Like this is a game for industry people to get better at what they do, and then also forge connections. So whether they're indies trying to find other people to collaborate on their project, whether it's people who work for bigger studios or might be looking to work for a bigger studio. So really the setup is it's for game developers. There's certainly business people there because a lot of time we have publishers are there scouting for games. We have an indie game showcase. If you're interested in that, please submit your game, and publishers come in and play all the games and kind of are scouting. There's a lot of different ways that we look to forge value in the conference. And then lastly, all the tools vendors. So certainly we have representation from the game engines out there. They come and exhibit, as well as just large studios looking to see who's out there and not only showcase their games, but look for new talent.
All right, so all of my folks in the U.S., listen to this. You need to support this. We're going to support this. Jennifer, after all this is done, send me information, and we'll do something with y'all as well.
Awesome.
We've got MDev, GDev is happening in Ohio, and our own fantastic Pepster is most likely going to be there. But these events need to be supported so we don't go back to this world that we live in where our only events are on the West Coast, expensive as hell. DreamHack down in Atlanta, I've been going to the last couple of years. That's growing. If you look at those of us who do a lot of business in the industry and end up on planes a whole lot of the time, if you look at the shows where we want to go, not the ones that we have to go to, the ones that we want to go to, are all the small regional shows in Europe for exactly the same reason Jennifer is talking about. They're more intimate. You don't see somebody on the street and they have a 20-30 minute meeting and you never see them again the rest of the week. You go to the events, you do a meeting, you're out to dinner that night. There's some sort of offsite event that everybody's happening. You're around everybody. You start to develop a much better relationship with anybody. So go to GDev, go to MDev, go to these regional events and support them, because that's what we need in the US, because we don't have these things, and they're really, really, really good tools. So yeah, circle back after this and we'll figure something out.
Awesome. I think the world of work too has changed. I know a lot of people are back in the office, but a lot of people aren't. So if you're working for a studio and your studio is looking to recruit talent, come to the Midwest. It's a lower cost of living here, and we have people that tend to be more loyal. They're not jumping between studios. They tend to be maybe more mature. They've moved to Madison or anywhere in Wisconsin or in the Midwest because they now have, a family and they want an actual house, and they're not looking to hop around every 2 years. They're looking to commit to a company and stay there for long term and do good work, but also be able to support their families.
They're not looking for a 1,000 square foot apartment in San Francisco for $6 million. They actually want a yard. And
I already have 3 of those.
Yes, rooms, things like that. This has been fantastic, Jennifer. This is absolutely awesome. I am so glad you came on.
Thanks for having me. You're so fun.
Friday. Tell us, what do you want to plug? So we've got the post to Roboco in the chat. Is Some Assembly Acquired still in the Meta Store?
Yeah, Some Assembly Acquired is so fun. If you're a Quest 2, 3, or Pro user, go check that out for sure. And then, we're launching ticket sales for MDev in May. Go ahead and put that on your calendar. You'll see a lot of it online, a lot of the promotion. But the website is mdevconf.com.
I had that somewhere too. I don't know how I got back to it. Anyway, I'll find it. We'll put it
and I'll be there. So if you actually see this podcast and you come to MDev, I am not hard to find in that conference. So come say hi and tell me that you saw me. The code word is skeleton.
She'll be the one in 30-degree weather walking around in shorts, like we do up here in the mountains, and people look at us like we're crazy.
Totally.
Awesome. Where's Dan?
I'm right here.
Dan.
Right here. So it's mdevconf.com, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
mdevconf.com. Domain is not claimed. So
Yeah.
that might.
How'd that happen?
I don't know.
Scratch that.
Hold on, I'm going to GoDaddy. I'm going to buy it and resell it to him.
Hey.
Resell that quick. But there is, you know what? If you search MDev, it's on there because I was just looking at it.
Yeah.
So you can check it out. Thank you, Jennifer, for being on Indie Game Business. It's been awesome. We are excited because in May, we're having our deep dive marketing. It's on May 14th. Deep dive marketing.
Over 500 attendees so far, and it is shaping up to be one of our biggest events ever.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be amazing. There is some amazing guests. I know because I've been scheduling the streams. We've got another one that the last one in, Alyssa. She's always awesome when she's on. I think she's also the last one of the day. But yeah, it's going to be an amazing day that day. All marketing all day. We know that that's like one of the most asked about subjects is marketing and working with publishers. But thank you so much. If you're not on our Discord, join our Discord, discord.gg/IndieGameBusiness. Check out our merch shop. Check it out. Here, let me put that banner up real quick so you guys can have a quick look at this.
Shout out to Garrett, by the way. Garrett heard us talking about the Midwest, and now he's in the Discord. So yeah.
It just pops in. He heard the word Midwest, and it popped up.
You're muted on Discord.
Oh.
Haha.
Dang it. That's okay. I don't need to tell people on Discord how to get in Discord. So also check out. Dang it. It was me this time after I talked all that smack in Discord. So pick up some Indie Game Business merch at streamlabs.com/IndieGameBusiness/merch. We've got some great stuff in there. And we will see you next Friday.
Exactly. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.